Michelle Metro-Roland, and I handle the Fulbright portfolio here at Western Michigan University, both the student and scholar program and the inbound and outbound. And so I serve as the Fulbright program advisor for our WMU students who want to apply for the U.S. student program. I also had a Fulbright Hayes doctoral dissertation research abroad grant, and I spent a year in Hungary. So we're not going to talk about the Fulbright Hayes, but if anyone's interested, you can reach out to me. But I really want to focus on the Fulbright U.S. student program and what kind of options there are for WMU students. There are over 2,000 awards annually for the U.S. Student Award, and Fulbright is operating in 140 plus countries, and it depends on the type of award. The research and graduate study awards and the English teaching awards, those are all possibilities of things that you can do. They operate in different ways in different countries. One of the things about Fulbright is it's fully funded, so it'll get you abroad, get you these experiences, and it's a really wonderful way to do that without having to pay for your experience. Well, the Fulbright program, it's kind of important to understand its background. It was created in the aftermath of World War II, and it's really about person-to-person diplomacy. And so you can see here that the mission is to foster mutual understanding between nations, advance knowledge across communities, and improve lives around the world. And for the U.S. student program, that comes out in various ways in which they're looking at ways for you to be going abroad and being engaged in the community. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Diversity and inclusion are really important parts of the Fulbright program. Because of this is an attempt to do person-to-person diplomacy. They really want to make sure that the students that they're sending abroad are representative of the full panoply of U.S. students here. And so they think about diversity in kind of the traditional ways, but they also think about geographic diversity as well. And so when folks are looking at applications, they're always reminded, make sure you're just not choosing the students from the two coasts, or Yale and Harvard and Berkeley and Stanford. So they really want to make sure that they're getting, again, a full spectrum of students representing the U.S. In terms of eligibility, because this is the U.S. student program, you do need to be a U.S. citizen. There is a foreign student program, and if anyone's on here thinking about that, you can reach out to me and I can talk more about that. The Fulbright program does require you to have a bachelor's in hand by the time you go out to the program, but what that means is that I can work with students if they're thinking about a Fulbright for after graduation. We really want to start thinking about working on that application in your junior year, and then you're applying in the fall of your senior year. And it's a lot like a grad school application in that you're applying in the fall to go out the following fall. There are some exceptions on that. With some of the Latin American countries in the Southern Hemisphere, you may be going out a year and a half. But for the most part, it's a pretty long process, and so you really want to think about that. The other piece that I will say is I can work with recent graduates, and about half of the students that I actually work with each year to put Fulbright applications forward, half of them are usually enrolled students and half of them are alumni. And so up to about 5 years after graduation, we can sit down and talk about this. In terms of award types, I kind of already mentioned this, but there are really they divide it up into 2 awards. I really like to think about it as 3. There are study awards where you can go and you can actually engage in graduate degree study and get a master's degree with a Fulbright. You can also go abroad and do independent research as well as arts projects. And then the third type are these English teaching assistantships, and these are awards that allow you to go. You're going to be an assistant teacher. You're going to be working with somebody else from the host country, and the most important thing for the English teaching awards is that you have facility with English, that you're a native English speaker. The award benefits. So Fulbright, just in terms of the tangible benefits, you're going to get round-trip airfare, you're going to get a monthly stipend that's going to be pegged to the cost of living in your host country. If you're doing one of these English teaching awards, there is a online TESOL fundamentals course, so they're giving you some experience. So, and that's great if you have any interest in possibly working in the teaching English as a second speaker for speakers of other languages later on. Some of the awards have support for dependents, so spouses or children. Some awards have research allowance. Some of the awards for graduate study do not include tuition. A lot of them do include tuition, though. There may be language lessons involved, and there may be other kinds of things that you're gonna receive. One of the most important things about a Fulbright award are the kind of intangible benefits that you get afterwards, and you join a very extensive alumni network. Fulbright likes to say that there are Fulbrighters all around the globe. There are about 60 heads of state, including the current Prime Minister of the UK. He's a Fulbrighter. There are Pulitzer Prize winners. There are Nobel Prize winners, and then there are just normal folks who have gotten Fulbright. So. Also, too, if you have any interest in working for the State Department, working for the federal government, a Fulbright Award does give you non-compete status, which means that you can be fast-tracked into a job with the U.S. government. And then you can join the Fulbright Association and, again, have kind of an into with this whole network of people abroad. The application components are, there's an online application, and so there's basic personal data and program information. They want to know about your extracurriculars, any relative job experience you may have, any awards you've gotten, reference letters. They want 3 letters of reference. And what I'll say about this is that typically if you're doing one of the research study awards, you really want to be thinking about asking those letters from your faculty so that they can speak to your academic achievements and your academic expertise. The ETA award, the English Teaching Award, they also are asking about, they want to know that you're a strong candidate, but they're also interested if you had any experience teaching in any capacity. So maybe you were a camp counselor, maybe you worked for Boys and Girls Club, maybe you did tutoring, maybe you worked at the Writing Center. So in that case, those reference letters can in fact come from somebody that you work closely with who can talk about your ability to work with young people. Down here at the bottom, we have some additional aspects of the application. And not all applications will require these. So if you're going to a place where some sort of language proficiency is required, then you will need a self-language evaluation and then a language evaluation from an instructor in that language. If you're in the arts area, they do want a portfolio. And a letter of affiliation is required if you're doing research, because they want to make sure that you're not just hitting the ground and you're kind of wandering around. They want to know that you have somebody there who is going to be a point person for you. And there are lots of ways that we can work together to find you those affiliations. So for example, I worked with a student who wanted to go to Kenya, and we reached out to some faculty who have connections, who have taught Kenyan students here at WMU, and we're able to connect the student who is applying for the Fulbright with an alumnus who is in Kenya running a lab, and they were able to get a letter of affiliation that way. So there's lots of ways that we can work together to find those connections. Up here, essays, and I choose to talk about that last because of the fact that the essays are really the biggest part of what your reviewers are looking at in these applications. There's always a personal statement, which is 1 page, and that's really your opportunity to talk about who you are, why you're interested in what you're interested in, kind of how you got there. And then there's a statement of grant purpose. For the English Teaching Award, it is 1 page, and that can be very challenging because you need to put a lot into that essay. You need to talk about what experiences you're going to bring, what it's going to look like in the classroom when you're there, and how this fits into your larger trajectory. So one of the things is that we really want to work on that essay, because that one is really challenging. We want to work over the summer and go through drafts and kind of workshop it. The study research award gives you 2 pages. That can also be very challenging, especially if you're proposing research, because you're going to need to talk about your research proposal, your methodology, your expertise, what connections you have, and again, why this particular country. So my office works really closely with students on this process, and we also want to make sure that we're reaching out to your faculty because they have the disciplinary expertise to be able to guide you here. So that's kind of the components. The application timeline. So in the spring, you really want to kind of meet with the Fulbright program advisor, which is me, here on campus. And the reason why I say that is if you are affiliated with WMU, you are required to go through, it is a university application. So at the end of the application process, we actually include a review sheet about your proposal that is then read by other reviewers, and so that's a really great way to get additional support for your application. So you want to meet with your advisor, really want to think about what award works, plan the project, and then if you do need that letter of affiliation, that's something we really need to work on right now. Because as I was saying earlier when I was talking about the Scholar Program, a lot of our international partners, when the summer comes, they actually do stop away. And so we want to make sure that we're able to get those letters of affiliation in time for the application deadline. We have a campus deadline, which is the 2nd Monday of September. This year it's September 9th. And at that point, what we'll do is we'll take your application and we'll share it with our campus evaluation committee, which is made up of faculty who have Fulbright awards and have actually served on these national screening committees, so they really know what Fulbright is looking for. We'll bring you in either virtually or in person, do an interview, and give you feedback on your application so you can make it stronger. And then you'll have the opportunity to turn it in for the national deadline in October, which is usually mid-October. At that point, it goes to what's called the National Screening Committees. These are people who, if you're applying for an ETA award, they are professors who teach in the field of TESOL. They will be looking at your applications. If it's a study research award, they will be people who have expertise in the country or the region that you are applying to. That review completes, and you will hear in January the results of that. So in that first round of reviews, you'll either be recommended or non-recommended. If you are recommended, then it goes to the host country review, and here it says January through May, and it is absolutely the case that is a long period of time. It's the most difficult period of time because you're waiting. And you may hear, the earliest I've had a student hear is February, and the latest I've had a student hear about their award is May. So that extent of time is quite accurate. And if you are chosen, then you will receive notification from IIE, and we all celebrate. One of the things I always like to talk about with Fulbright is what does it look like in terms of thinking about more generally prestigious scholarships and building a resume. And so one thing, your coursework, you want to do a couple of things. So if you're towards the end of your career at the university, you want to look back and say, is there something that I can pull together that shows that I have taken an intentional a route through my coursework? Are there things that I've gotten out of my coursework that is directly relevant to the proposal that I'm putting together there? The same thing with activities. You want to think about those activities that you're engaging in outside of the classroom, and have them matter. Have them be substantive. So one of the things, if you're early in your career thinking about, can you get a study abroad opportunity? Can you can you develop relationships with your faculty to have research opportunities? Can you think about your career goals with an open mind? And the reason why I say this is that with Fulbright, they really want to know how this fits in. And so you may have sort of this general idea, but there's a lot of flexibility, and we want to be able to kind of tell a story that makes sense, but it doesn't have to be the definitive story. And then you also want to think about taking advantage of resources and professional development opportunities. So if you're thinking about research, can you while you're here take the online course on research on human subjects, right? So that you have that qualification. Are there other opportunities within the college that you can get these professional development opportunities? Because again, putting that in there, putting it into both not only a resume or CV, but a grad school application, a job application, a scholarship application is going to be meaningful. In terms of applying for prestigious scholarships, the most important thing that I would say is you really want to start early. I've had students show up, about a week before the campus deadline and say, I just learned about this. What do you think? Can I put together an application? And that's going to be a really difficult lift. So you really want to start early. If you are early in your career here, I can talk to students at the freshman level, sophomore level, junior level. I can talk to students whenever. Again, sort of thinking about these things kind of in the future. With regard to graduating seniors, right now is a perfect time to start talking about Fulbright Award, because we want to work through the summer for that campus deadline in September. You really want to clarify your goals for the scholarship, because it's going to help you write your essays. You really want to, and we can brainstorm through that. We can sort of, figure out, okay, what's the best way to position what it is that you want to do and talk about that. Again, build on relationships with faculty. You need faculty to write those letters of recommendation, and you want to build on them. You also want to have faculty, again, assisting you with their disciplinary expertise in your application process. And read the directions, including eligibility, carefully. And that sounds like something that's super basic, but I'm going to open up the awards catalog later and show you what it looks like. There's a lot of detail in there, and you really have to be very careful. Some of the awards, they'll say that they're not going to place students in the capital cities, only regional cities or rural areas. If that's not something you're good with, it's going to be hard for you to apply, or if you're ignoring that, your application is not going to get very far. If there's a language requirement, so a lot of the awards that do require language, a lot of the Spanish-speaking countries, you need an intermediate level. If you're not going to hit that intermediate level, your application is not going to get very far in the review process. And then you want to take advantage of advisor resources. So again, we really want to make sure that we're connecting and that we're working together. IIE, the Institute of International Education, which sponsors Fulbright, has a whole host of resources on there as well. So we really want to make sure that you're taking advantage of all of those. Choosing the right award is really the best way to be successful with a Fulbright application. So figuring out, what do you want to do? Do you want to research? Do you want to study? Do you want to teach? And we have a lot of conversations about that, kind of, especially if you're coming in and you don't have a specific thing. We really want to figure out kind of what this looks like. And oftentimes I work with students and they're like, yeah, maybe I could do the ETA award. And then we start talking about, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? And if the thought of working with middle schoolers is really not something you want to do on a day, you're probably not going to put together a strong application, right? Where do you want to go? So sometimes I have students come in and they absolutely know where they want to go, and other times they're really open to it. And so again, we want to figure out what's a good fit. What language skills are you bringing? What interests are you bringing? And I'll tell you an example like this, right? So let's say you have a country that you want to go to, and you don't really have a lot of experience with it, you haven't been there, that's fine, we can, but there should be a rationale for why you want to do this. So I worked with a student one time who applied to an award in Turkey, and the reason why the student was interested in Turkey is they met some Turkish students while they were here, became close friends, really became fascinated by it, and that was a really good reason for them to have an interest in Turkey. So again, figuring out how do we match your interests with where you want to go. I mentioned foreign language, if you are proposing research, oftentimes you do have to figure out if the host language, the local language, needs to factor in there, and you need to have some expertise in that. It doesn't always have to. So for example, we sent a student abroad several years ago who was working in a lab in Finland, and they didn't need Finnish because all of the lab work was being done in English. So again, we want to have those conversations, and then you want to match your expertise and your goals to the candidate profile. Each of the awards is going to have a very specific candidate profile that they're going to talk about. Sometimes that says we're looking for students who have degrees in these fields. Sometimes it's we're looking for students who have experience with camp counseling. There is an award out there that has that, right? So again, making a good match between what you are doing, what you want to do, and what you have done. And then getting connected with Fulbright, so being able to connect with both IIE, with the webinars that they have. There's a whole YouTube channel. Reddit has a whole host of people talking about Fulbright. Meeting with your Fulbright program advisor, with me, and just connecting. So those are really the key things. And then I want to really quickly pull up the catalog just so I can show you what the Fulbright webpage looks like and how to navigate it. So this is the student award page, and one of the easiest things to do is just Google Fulbright U.S. Student Program and it'll come up. One of the really nice keys about this is they have this tab, Types of Awards, and so I'm just going to show you the English Teaching Assistant Awards here. They have this table of regional awards, and you can pull this up, and they'll give you, at a glance, a list of countries that have these ETA awards. What kind of placement type is it going to be? So like Mongolia is university, South Korea is primary through secondary, or might be some other placement. They're going to tell you your placement location, rural areas, capital cities, regional cities, what your commitment is. Typically it's about 20 hours. Mongolia is sort of this outlier of like almost 40 hours, but typically the award should be about 20 hours, right? And you can see here, for example, in South and Central Asia. The other thing that they're going to show you is host country language requirements, right? And most of these countries do not have any language requirements. If you come over to Europe, France, for example, requires intermediate. Spain down here has a ton of grants, but they do require intermediate language levels. So that's a really nice way to kind of look at what is out there. If we go into the Study Research Awards, there are specific awards that are here in like STEM and public health. So that may be of interest to students here. The other thing is they have this table for Fulbright graduate degree grants. And this sometimes confuses students, but what this basically is going to show you is when you open up the catalog, there are these what's called the Open Study Research Award, and typically what open means is that it's open to all disciplines. Not all of these open awards will allow you to apply for graduate degree enrollment. So Austria does not allow you to do that with the open award, but Australia does. The other thing is that some countries have what are called named awards, and these are these graduate degree award opportunities that are often in specific areas. So in Australia, if we look here, there is this award, and it's very broad. So it's arts, environment, and public health. And then they also have this public policy award. So those are going to be for specific graduate degree awards. And then some countries have specific awards at specific universities for graduate degree enrollment. So again, that's a really nice way of looking, just in general. Then the other thing that you're going to find here is that you have this catalog of awards that are, you know, broken up by region, and then within these there are going to be different types of awards that you can look at. And I want to pull out one of the, I think it was Chile, Open Study Research in Chile, right? So it's going to show you the accepted degree levels, what the start date is. And so again, this is one of those awards that I told you with the South American countries has a late start date. A lot of the start dates are September for other regions. This is going to tell you what they're looking for in terms of this. So, so for this award, even though it's open to students at the bachelor's level, graduate students conducting thesis or dissertation research are preferred. Graduating seniors and recent graduates will be considered with projects proposing audit, coursework, and a research project. So that's the kind of detail that you really want to read very carefully, because that's going to help shape your application. They're going to tell you the grant length period, any information if there's an orientation, and then the candidate profile here. So they really want to tell you about kind of what they're looking for. So for example, with proficiency in Spanish considered somewhat important but not detrimental. Again, reading this really carefully, there's just going to be little bits and pieces. Some of the awards I've seen have said we're really looking for people who are, again, comfortable being outside of the capital region. This is a new section, what's it like to be in the host country? So that is just going to give you background information about the country. Whether or not dual citizens are eligible, if you've resided in the host country, like what does that look like? Are you still eligible to apply? The foreign language proficiency, this is going to be listed here, and any additional information about it. And then Fulbright proposal type. So this award will allow you to apply for independent study or research, but not graduate degree enrollment. And then whether a letter of affiliation is required. And so, for example, this one says that the letter is required for independent study or research at the deadline. What that means is that you have to have it when you apply in October. Some applications will tell you that you can add it later. It's really important to read that very carefully, because that's going to help you. Also here, they're going to tell you whether or not tuition is covered, or any affiliation. Some universities, if you're going to have an affiliation with them, they may charge bench fees. So that's going to tell you what is covered, your award benefits, and then the stipend amount. This is new here, and I think this is kind of helpful. One thing to keep in mind is that with a Fulbright, you're not going to be rich, but you should be able to live comfortably. And your stipend is typically covering your housing and your living expenses while you're abroad. And then whether or not dependents are supported, and dependents are not included here, and then housing arrangements. There are a few awards that offer housing or support with housing, and this one does not. So this is a pretty good example of what these awards look like. And then the only other thing that I will pull up really quickly is the UK, because the UK is really unique in that their awards are almost entirely they're named awards at particular institutions. And again, there's one award at pretty much all of these places here. This one has 3. But for the most part, these are awards that are very specific. So this one is in food security. This one is in dance. These named awards, if you're a good fit for it, that's a great choice to try to think about. So there's a lot of information on here in the awards catalog, and it really makes sense to take some time. My office can help. We can sort through awards. I'm not going to tell you which award to apply for, because ultimately that's your decision. But I can definitely provide, sort of background and how we can talk about what things to look for, especially based on your individual expertise and your experience. So that for now, and thank you so much. And please feel free to reach out and set up an individual advising appointment. And I look forward to hopefully talking to some of you soon. Thank you.